Assalamu alaikum dear students. In the series of learning C programming, in previous video we have discussed what is enum data structure. Enum, user defined data type. Every single minute detail regarding the enum data type have thoroughly discussed it in previous video with the help of the program. And come today we are going to discuss one more concept of C, one more important concept of C, that is the storage classes in C. In today's video, we will discuss the introductory part of the storage classes. In this video, we will see what are storage classes, what are the properties of the storage classes, how do we use storage classes in a program, and what information does storage classes store, and what is the effect of storage classes on the variables. Every minute single detail regarding the introductory part of storage classes will be discussed in today's video with the help of the program. So our today's topic is storage classes in C. We know that whenever we declare a variable, for example, this is the way by which we can declare a variable. For example, int x. Here I have declared a variable x of type integer. This line tells that x is the name of the variable which will store the data integer value. That means the value which is going to be stored in the location x is of type integer. That means this declaration tells the compiler two things. First, it tells the type of the data that is going to be stored in the variable. And second, it tells name of the variable. Name of variable. For example, if I initialize this, simply I write here int x equal to 6. That means now 6 is the value at x. So this declaration and this initialization as a declaration tells that the name of the variable, three things regarding the variable: name of the variable, data that is going, the type of data that is going to be stored in the variable. Here in this case, the data that I want to store is of type integer, and if I initialize here it, 6 is the value at the x. But in addition to this, for example, in addition to this, there are some other things associated with the variable. In addition to these three properties, we can say type of data that is going to be stored, name of the variable, and the value if I initialize. And in addition to this, there are some other things associated with this variable. What are those variables? For example, those things are, here I will write, those things are, first, default value. First I will write. Second thing is the location. Third thing is the scope of variable. And fourth thing is the lifetime. That means, in addition to these things, there are some other things, in addition to these properties, there are some other things which are associated with this variable. These are the default value. That means, if I don't initialize this here, int x, I have only declared here variable x of type integer, and nothing is going to be initialized here. By default, it will have some value. By default, there is some value in this x. What value by default this x have, that is called a default value. Whether it have negative value, whether it have garbage value, whether it have positive value, whether it have keyword in it, by default, that is called default value. And second one is the location, where this variable is going to be stored, whether it is going to store, where in the RAM or the registers this value is going to be stored, the location of the variable, where at what position this variable is going to be stored in the RAM or in the registers, because we can store the variables either in the RAM, so not we, but the compiler. Compiler can store the variables either in the RAM or in the registers as well. But while they are going to be stored in the RAM or the registers, that is known as a location. But that is not going to be known by this line. Third one, the scope. What is the scope of this variable? Whether the scope of the variable is global or a local. And fourth one is the lifetime. What is the lifetime of this variable? How long I can use this variable? That is called a lifetime. All these four things, that means default value, what value the variable have by default, location, where the variable is going to be stored in the RAM or a registers, scope, what is the scope of this variable, whether the scope is local or a global, or we can, or more precisely you can say whether the scope is a program scope, block scope, or the function scope, and the lifetime through which we can, up to what extent I can use this value, that is called a lifetime. All these four things are going to be known by its storage classes. Now we can say that in addition to these two properties, type, name of the variable, the variable is associated with the storage classes. In addition to it, because whenever we declare a class, whenever we declare an variable, at that time it only tells us the type of the value that is going to store it in the variable and the name of the variable only. But in addition to that, it is associated with the storage classes. Those storage classes tell us about the default value of that variable, what value by default that variable have, the location of that variable, where this variable is located, stored in the memory or in the RAM. Third, the scope of the variable, whether the scope of that variable is a function scope, whether it have a block scope, whether it have a program scope, or in simple words you can say whether it have a local scope or a global scope. And third one, the lifetime, how long this variable is live. So these all the four things are going to be known by these storage classes. Okay, now how we can write a storage class? Simply here, before the data type, we can write here storage class. For example, there are 4 types of storage classes. There are 4 different types of storage classes. First one is the auto storage class. Second one is the external storage class. Third one is the register storage class. And fourth one is the static storage class. There are 4 different types of the storage classes which are associated with these variables: auto, external, and register and static. Okay, by default, if I don't write here anything, by default the storage class is auto. By default the storage class is auto, and here I can write here auto. If I write here auto, here only we can write before the data type, we have to specify the storage classes. And inshallah, these 4 storage classes, auto, external, register, and static, these will be discussed in coming videos one by one. So here, today now, we know that now what are storage classes? Storage classes contain these informations. We know the storage classes. Through these storage classes, we know what is the default value of the variable, what is the location of that variable, what is the scope of that variable, and what is the lifetime of that variable. So we can say that storage classes, these 4 things, these 4 properties, default value, location, scope, and depends upon the storage classes. If I write here auto, then this value will be something. If I write here external, this value can be something other. So these value goes on changing depending upon if we change these if we change these storage classes. So these values, we can say, in other words, these values are dependent on the storage classes. Now I hope now you know what are storage classes. What information does storage classes store? Show us. What information we know by using these storage classes? What storage classes told us about the variable? Okay. Now we will write now here, for example, take here. Default value, it is simply what value is going to be stored, what value the variable by default takes, what variable the variable by default have. That is depends upon this default value. There is storage classes. That is called a default value. And location, where the variable is stored in the RAM, what the position of the variable in the RAM are we can say registers, because we can store the variables in registers as well. And third one, which is most important, that is the scope here. What is scope of this variable? Scope, when we talk about the scope, there are three types of scope that a variable can have. First one is that we can say a block scope. Block scope a variable can have a block scope. Second one is the function scope. And third scope is the program scope. A variable can have these types of scopes. Either it can have a block scope, or it can have a function scope, or it can have program scope. In this video, we will discuss these two things now: scope and lifetime. What is scope? What is block scope? What is function scope? And what is program scope? Now here I will write a simple program. With the help of that program, we will discuss what are these scopes. Or in other words, we can discuss here what storage classes here with that introduction of the storage classes. For example, here I am going to write a program. First of all, we have to include the header files. For example, std.h and these conio.h. After that, here I will write a program. For example, int man int variable x. Here I am going to only 30. Printf %d x x equal to 10. Percentage d x plus printf percentage d x and a equal to 30 and percentage d Here I write down a small program, and with the help of this program we will see the working of these scopes. Block, what is block scope, what is function scope, or more precisely we can say here a method scope as well. Function or method scope and program. Now here what I have done here, I have from here int x, I have declared here a variable x and initialized with 30. Now this variable here contains x and its value is 30 simply. And after that, here I am printing this value. Okay, we know that printf function is used to print the value percentage %d. And what would be the output? Output would be simply 30 because the x contains the value 30 that is going to be printed here. Now after that, here it is a under brace and this has a curly brace. This is called a block. These three instructions, x equal to 10, printf % x plus, these belongs to this block. From this curly brace, opening brace to up this closing brace, it is a block. This is called a block. And here I have also initialized x with 10. Now this x contains 10. Here I have initialized x with 10. That means x equal to 10. Now x contains 10, sorry. Here x is equal to 10. Printf % x plus plus. Printf % x plus plus. What is x? X is 10. First the value of x will get returned and it will get printed. Now first 10 will get printed here and after that the value of x will get incremented by 1 because we know the working of this post increment. Here x plus plus. It is the post increment. In case of post increment, first the value is going to be returned, then that value is going to be incremented. Here the value of x was 10. First it will get printed because this will get executed. So 10 will get printed here and then that 10 will get incremented by 1. So 10 plus 1, it will be now 11. That means new value in x is 11. So and after that printf % x and this instruction will print now new value of x, that is 11. So and after that, that's the closing brace. After leaving the control from this block, it will get vanished. That means we can say the scope of this x, this variable is only from this opening brace to this, that is only within this block. After exiting this block, its scope is nowhere. That means it gets released, this memory gets released. So we can say this is a block scope. This is a block scope. Here, x is 30. Now here, printf %a, x is 30. Here, x 30. The scope of this variable, x equal to 10, is throughout this program. We can say, is throughout this function. Because int is also a function. This man is also a function and it is declared inside this body of this man. Because the scope of this man starts from this brace, opening brace to this closing brace. Or we can say here, x equal to 10, the lifetime here. The lifetime of this x variable is from here and here. That means it's a block lifetime. After that, it will die. We can say it is no longer alive. After existing from this variable is no longer alive. That means the scope of this variable is only within this block. Now I hope that you have understood what is block scope and function scope. Function scope means, for example, here x equal to 10. X equal to 10. The scope of this x is throughout this program. We can say throughout this program. Throughout this function. For example, here I have written percentage now. Printf %a. We know that here I want to print the value of a. But in this function, from here to here, because main function starts from this opening brace and up to this. That the lifetime of this main function is from here to here. But in this program, I have not declared anywhere a. A is nowhere. Take care. But then what will happen? It will access the value. It will show if there is any global value of x. If a has been globally declared anywhere, here I have declared the variable a equal to 10. That means before the man, a equal 30, Before the man, here this A have been declared and have initialized the value 30. That means this is called a global declaration. That means global. The scope of this variable here A is throughout the program. It will this A will remain live until the program will end, execution of the program. At the end of the program. So it will print, simply it will print this 30. Because here in this function there is nowhere, A is nowhere, and now it will search if there is A is anywhere globally declared. Here it has been declared. Now it will access this value and will print the value 30. This is a global declaration. Program, or you can say a program scope. That means this A can be used throughout the program. For example, here I will write another function. Here I am going to declare only fun, for example. Simply. Here only. Fun. Fun. Here I am declaring a function fun. Here I am calling a function fun. Here I am going to declare fun. Printf. Percentage A. Percentage D A. And there. And that's it. Now, after entering the control in this program, it will here is a fun function. It will call a fun function and control will go from here. Control will jump from here to here, and here it will print percentage %A. But nowhere in this function A has been declared. Nowhere this variable has, but it will search now here. It will see whether the A has been declared anywhere globally. Here it is declared A into A, and it will print 30. And if I will x int b equal to 5, for example, this b is local to this function. Here I have declared a variable b and have stored 5 in that variable. Okay. That means here I have both initialized as well as declared. Both declaration as well as initialization of the variable takes place at the same time. And after that, here I am going to print this. Printf percentage D B, and it will print me 5. Simply, it will print me 5. Printf percentage B D. The scope of the, if I want, for example, here I am going to printf percentage D B, it will show me an error because the scope of here it will get printed 5. That here the output of this line would be 5. But if I try to print the value of B in the main function here only printf percentage B, it will show me an error. It will show me an error because in the scope of this variable A B is only from this brace to this brace. That means it has a function scope. This, or we can say a method scope. We cannot use the variable, this variable, which have a function outside that function. The lifetime of this variable is only from here to here, only from within this function. After existing from this function, it gets erased. This memory gets released. So we can say it's only a function scope. And now we have hope that you have understood what is block scope, what is function scope, and what is program scope. In case of block scope, we can access that program, the scope, that variable only within that function. Only within that block. Outside that block, we cannot access that variable. We cannot use that variable. The lifetime of the block scope, the lifetime of the variable that has been declared in a block is only within that block. And in the same way, the lifetime of the variable which have been declared in any function is only within that function. We cannot access that variable outside that function. And program scope. the variable which has been declared here outside the program, that we can say globally, that variable can be accessed throughout the exit program. If whether there are 5 functions, 6 functions that program contains, we can access that variable from all those 6 functions. Now, I hope that you have understood what is scope. There are 3 types: block scope, function scope, program scope, and what does lifetime of a variable mean. And inshallah, in the next video, we are going to discuss the storage classes. As I have told you, there are 4 storage classes: auto storage class, there is this external storage class, there is the register storage class, and there is the static storage classes. In the next video, we are going to discuss these storage classes one by one. Till next video, take care and bye bye.